So today we're going to continue this journey on impact, and I've actually created a little playlist where we've talked a lot about the impact position. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is this sort of pre-impact position to sort of post-impact position and what should be happening. Well, what would have happened, again hypothetically, is you've rotated in the backswing and you've started to shift that pressure towards that lead side, triggering rotation into roughly this sort of delivery position. So it's very hypothetical, I understand, but if you've managed to trigger a good start to the downswing, you're going to be in a position where your hands have taken a narrower path so they're getting close towards the golf ball, but you're still going to notice the way you're in a bit of a stage where the club head is going to be further away from you. So what should happen from this stage? Well, what needs to happen is my lead shoulder is going to need to start going up, and that's going to have an effect where the club is going to uncock on the back of the golf ball like so. So when that club's miles away from you, you need to bear in mind that you've still got a lot of uncocking motion to happen, which will bring the club down, as well as you've got an element of elevation on this lead arm. So that's going to help that club nicely find the back of the golf ball in this type of position. Now, I think the reservation for a lot of golfers is when you start talking about, you know, getting up on that shoulder, they tend to like that because that's quite liberating. When you do things like lead arm only drills, people can generally feel the retraction on that lead shoulder helps the hands go through and generate more of a whip. Perfect, okay, happy with that. And you can hit some shots with that sort of, you know, short swing, get low shoulder, up and out the way, helps the hands go through the ball, as opposed to golfers that get a little bit too hitty from this position, tend to sort of stay down and get a little folded. Perfect. However, what needs to happen as well, as we know with professional golfers when we look at them from side on, is they end up in a position where they're like so. Okay, so how do you balance this upward motion with an ability to still stay over the ball? And the answer comes very much in the pelvis and the hips, right? So if I sort of face you for a moment and I sort of again bring it into this pre-delivery position, what needs to happen is, as I sort of am trying to go upward with my motion, I'm still going to need to retain my hip depth, which basically means the left side of my pelvis needs to stay back on my tush line. Okay, because if I just go up, this is going to be no good because I'm going to stand up. Okay, so what we need to do is you need to understand that when you're coming into this type of motion, you can see the way my lead leg is straightening. Okay, now depending on how much extension and force there is upward, and depending on how deep my left hip goes, will depend on how straight my left leg behaves. But the point is, from pre-parallel to this impact position here, this leg is straightening up. But most importantly, out of this video, you can understand the way I'm retaining my hip depth, and that tilts the pelvis. So the more I do this, not only is that going to give me the ability to come up through the hit and get this shoulder out of the way, but it's also going to help me retain my angles, which means from this perspective, if I retain that lead hip back position, it tilts my shoulders, tilts the pelvis, it gets me looking like I'm staying down. But the funny thing is, depending on each golfer, it won't feel like that. It won't feel like it's such a right-sided crunch motion. It might feel more like it's a left-sided clearing action. But the reason why you still stay down crunched is because you're retaining that hip depth, and I think that is such an important thing to understand. So like I said, you might not necessarily be able to straight away apply it, and you might have to sort of practice these types of motions, but that's what we'll be talking about on the channel as well. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to get across this message of how do you get the feeling of getting up on the golf ball, but also having that ability to stay down on the golf ball. And that's why you need to understand the importance of hip depth, particularly with this lead hip staying back on that tush line. It's going to help you out tremendously. Let's go and work on it. Catch up with you guys again really soon.